Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Logistics, where we have conversations with thought leaders and newsmakers in the supply chain logistics industry. It's my great pleasure to welcome to today's program Gary Rosier-Taylor, who's Director of Sales at Descartes. And today we're going to talk about how are companies engaging with customers around deliveries in 2023. So for B2B and B2C companies alike, delivery is becoming a competitive differentiator and a key driver of customer experience. So how well do you engage with customers around their deliveries? We explored that question recently in a survey that we conducted with members of our Indago supply chain research community. So these are all supply chain logistics executives from manufacturing, retail, and distribution companies. And in today's episode, we're going to analyze and discuss some of the survey results. And it's great to have, Gary on the program to share his insights and advice on this topic. So Gary, welcome to the program.
Hey, Adrian, and yeah, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Great. Well, so Gary, let's we'll kind of touch upon some of the survey results here, and I'll just mention up front that Descartes will be sharing some of the survey results as well on their website, so people can get more in-depth information there as well. But let's start with a basic question. Why is customer engagement so top of mind, or for those companies that really haven't been focused on it, why should it be top of mind for both B2B and B2C companies?
Great starting question, Adrian. Thanks for that. And I really want to say it's not as basic a question as you think it may be. And partly because there's so many different reasons or so many different types of customer engagement that we consider. I'm going to try and answer it in a kind of relation to the last interaction with a customer that is right before delivery, which traditionally is known as what we call the last mile. In my view, I'm going to call it the critical mile. Now, people are really just waking up to the idea that customers prefer more than just a little bit of transparency around their deliveries. Now, partially thanks to food delivery companies and other services that consumers interact with on a day-to-day basis, we've absolutely all come to expect a certain level of engagement. Now, it is without a doubt becoming a differentiator as maybe the sales process has gone really well, or maybe the process of purchasing or buying has gone nice and smoothly, but the poor last interaction is left in the customer's mind, or sours the mouth in some capacity, and so therefore ultimately it becomes incredibly important when they're deciding the next time around who they want to do business with. Now, from a survey perspective, the results really speak for themselves. From what I took away from it, the study showed that companies that engage electronically with customers about deliveries had seen increased CSATs, reduced call centers or call center contact, reduced disputes, claims, failed deliveries, all these things that happen on a day-to-day basis. This makes the customer engagement such a big part of operational effectiveness. Add to that, I'd probably also say revenue performance as well. What I found probably the most shocking element was that, I think just over half of all the companies that were surveyed don't actually engage with their customers. So they're leaving all those benefits on the table. That's to me is a huge opportunity, but also kind of a huge criticism as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was surprising to me as well. From the survey results, to see that, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I've written about this topic in the past. Talking about the growing role and importance of delivery and customer experience and customer satisfaction, and ultimately to operational and financial performance as well. I used to talk about it in terms of delivery really is that, in some ways, that final moment of truth. Like everything else can go so right up front, and then you're sitting there waiting. They gave you a time window, and the worst case is, they give you a time window that's all day. So that's bad enough. And then they give you a time window that's all day at, let's say until 5 o'clock, and it's 5:15 and they still haven't arrived and you still haven't heard from them and you have no idea where they are and so forth. So I think that experience can quickly, you can lose a customer, for life, when that happens. I want to peel back the onion a little bit with regard to customer engagement, because I think if you ask different people, what does that mean or what's involved with customer engagement, I think, folks might have, different definitions or perceptions about it. I mean, is customer engagement just about providing a estimated time of arrival to customers about, the deliveries, or does it go beyond that? I mean, in other words, I mean, how are the leaders in this area engaging with customers?
So to answer that question in one word is no, it's not just about an ETA. However, there are so many different facets to consider. More and more companies are providing ETAs. However, typically, and you've literally just alluded to it, and a perfect example are they're generally based on standard lead times. Long time window or long lead times, long delivery windows. Instead of using, whether it's dynamically calculated ETAs that use real time, whether it's GPS, real time location data, that's generally what we would classify as kind of engagement. Now, it is great to see companies understanding the value of providing an ETA, but saying your delivery will be there in 3 to 5 days, it's not as impactful as saying your delivery driver will arrive on Thursday between 12 and 4, whilst also on the day being able to narrow that time down as the delivery approaches. And that can be done dynamically, or including things such as delays, or even adding in things like a place in the queue, just for some context of, oh, I'm 6th or 7th down the line. It gives us some of that kind of sort of context and visibility from a consumer standpoint. Now, from the survey, it was only 5% of the respondents used dynamic delivery windows. Now, that to me says there is a massive, and I mean absolutely ginormous, opportunity for companies to improve on this relatively quickly and relatively easily. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like communicating ETAs is important. And it certainly seems to be one of the top ways that companies are engaging with their customers in that critical time frame. And we only saw a fraction of those companies actually allowing to manage those deliveries as well. So we talk about ETA and we talk about kind of contextual information, but also giving empowerment or giving the ability for customers to actually do something about it. That's really important. That's the engaging part. That can include, self-serve capabilities, things like rescheduling, confirming an appointment or confirming a delivery, cancelling or communicating specific information about a delivery. Come to the side door, knock loudly, I'm hard of hearing. Anything like that, really does support and gives the real engagement. So kind of couple that, the ETA, but also the capability to do something about it. Now,
yeah, I mean, I think those are. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was going to say these are just the little things that customers expect when they've purchased something. Like, good example, if delivery was later than expected due to unforeseen circumstances, a crash, an accident, hopefully touch wood, nothing too serious, but I'd much rather be able to find that information out myself than to call into any organization, taking my time. I mean, the click of a button versus picking up the phone. I don't know how long that's going to take. And I referenced, and I think it was over half of the respondents said they do not have a portal for a customer to go and look at this information. A huge missed opportunity for companies to share critical information that is readily available. Like, this information is available to these companies. Like, they can see those trucks on a route and they can see what's going on. Just share that information. It should be to me a much easier process to allow customers that information.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that this is an area that at best companies are, I think the survey kind of showed this. I mean, I think if I remember correctly, most of the respondents said that they start engaging with customers during the buying process in terms of communicating the delivery expectations and so forth. But again, it's kind of like still old school, right? So it's based on standard lead times or very wide windows. And I think when you look at some of the leading companies, as you reference, it's providing more dynamic ETAs, or then providing day of delivery some updated timing and insights, and then taking it a step further, providing customers the ability to self-service, right? If they need to reschedule, or if they want to provide some more specific delivery instructions because things changed that day, and so forth. I think that's where I see very few companies are doing that, at least within our community that we surveyed. But that seems to be a huge area of opportunity. So I guess I want to kind of dive into that a little bit more. I mean, like you mentioned, I mean, half the survey respondents aren't providing customers with that kind of self-service capabilities to manage their deliveries. Number one, did it surprise you that it was that relatively high, again, within our relatively small community? But does that surprise you? Does that align with what you see out there in the market? And why do you think more companies aren't letting their customers manage their own deliveries?
First off, speaking really candidly, yes, that surprises me greatly, for various reasons. From my personal perspective, we typically hear the main limitation is not because a company wants to have that manual interaction, but generally it's merely down to kind of the technology to enable this capability poses the biggest challenge. Being frank, I don't think I've had many conversations, if any conversations, in the past 10 to 12 years of my career within software, where I've spoken to somebody and they've said, I've got loads of development time, I've got loads of engineering time. These are an absolute premium, and whether it's the technical capabilities, whether it's the knowledge and understanding within that particular business, development, engineering, technical resource is an absolute premium. They're also stacked with work for the next God knows however long. Added to that, building something in-house without dedicated expertise in that specific sector or product takes a huge amount of time and investment just to learn and understand what's in the marketplace, what could be in the marketplace, what we want. All of these things come with these different nuances. So that to me is probably one of the reasons why more companies aren't doing that. The other thing about allowing people to do or to manage their deliveries, etc., it also highlights the need for companies to tell you more specifics. So if they don't have a portal, they don't have the capability to manage it, they're probably not telling you anything specific about it. For example, and I was chatting to a colleague a little bit earlier about this, and the exact experience happened. But if you knew, Adrian, a delivery was going to happen between 12 and 2 Eastern today, you'd probably know that we were going to be recording this interview, and you could take action to adjust that delivery. Not knowing that means you're simply hoping it doesn't turn up whilst we're on this call right now and there's a ding dong not just about to happen on your door. That to me is insane.
Yeah, and that's a great example, because that has happened to me more than once over the many years that I've been doing this program, where it just happens that either a delivery or a service technician is supposed to come, and they've given me that time window, and there's no way for me to adjust it or proactively make any changes. I wonder if part of the challenge, or why maybe some companies aren't further ahead in this area, is because who owns this, right? Is this a logistics does this fall in the logistics transportation domain, or does this fall under the customer service domain? Does that do you see that at all, or is it is there kind of a collaborative internal alignment that needs to happen to say, okay, who's going to take ownership of this project, or who's going to lead or fund this investment to enable this?
You're absolutely right. I think there is definitely a conversation to be had as to where this kind of sits, or who owns this particular conversation, or the particular product. From my perspective, and I'll try and visualize this a little bit. Right? As a general rule, if you do something for your organization's operational efficiency, your customer's experience declines. Okay. hypothetical situation, you want to, you fix a certain route that has to happen. Okay. And so one customer that should have been delivered to in the morning is then now delivered to in the afternoon, right? You're doing something for your operational efficiency because it's better for you. Customers' experience is declined. If you do something for your customers' experience, as a general rule, your your operational efficiency declines. Okay. For example, customer service centers. You increase your call center, your operational efficiency declines. The only thing that I've found from a technology standpoint in my years of working with software is communication. It's the only thing that can impact both of those two things in a positive way in alignment together. Your operational efficiency will unquestionably improve because people are aware of things happening, even to a tune of being able to understand exactly when people are going to turn up at your doors, the speed of that delivery occurring. Great. It gives you some other huge benefits because people are generally waiting for these products, especially if they're that excited by the thing they purchased or ordered or bought, right? And then the flip side is you're going to get less calls about it. So both of those two things just sit side by side and hand in hand. And so for me, it does need that kind of sort of, collaboration internally, but who owns that is really, I think the biggest battle we see is who's going to see the biggest benefit. And the truth is they're both going to see it. They just need to get on the same page.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think this goes back to the, what people have always talked about, is that, if you take a holistic view of any project initiative, and you really look at it from the standpoint of over the long term, right? The company as a whole benefits and customers benefit by doing, some of these things. And I think when you look at it from a balanced scorecard, organizational alignment, holistic perspective. I mean, these are words that we say and for forever, but I think it applies here as well because I think there's a win-win-win opportunity here, a win for logistics, a win for customer service, and obviously a win for customers as well if it's approached from that very holistic mindset.
Completely agree.
And anything else from the survey results that surprised you? I mean, any opportunities for capturing value that companies are missing out on based on kind of what the survey results revealed?
Again, I'm so glad you asked this question. There is so much that surprised me from the results. I'll pick out a couple because I think I could probably be talking for hours otherwise, specifically about this topic. One of the things, surprised that half the respondents don't send a post-delivery survey at all. Now, to me, this is a complete missed opportunity to perform service recovery. Not so much understanding how they perceive your brand or perceive the product, but the service. What did I think of that particular delivery process or service? It really allows people to get ahead of bad experiences before it affects your retention numbers or reorder rates. So I guess what I'm trying to say is job-based feedback not only strengthens the operational efficiency, but it's also a great way to understand far better where things are going wrong and how to be able to fix them when they don't go as well as possible. And it's not always about fixing a problem. It's sometimes just about acknowledging and saying, there's an issue, I'm going to take the constructive feedback. So that's probably one of the biggest things that surprised me. One, and actually really interesting, one specific bit of feedback in addition to that is, and this took me by absolute surprise, is one of the respondents within the survey said they didn't carry out a post-delivery survey or post-delivery feedback because they themselves didn't carry out the actual delivery. Now, from my perspective, even if you don't handle your own deliveries, how your customers actually interact with your brand, who you choose to partner with, completely impacts your retention numbers because they don't hold the third-party logistics company or they don't hold them accountable. They hold you accountable for any missteps. So it's about closing that delivery loop, and without collecting that feedback, how do you do it? You don't know what's going right or wrong. So for me, that was a really interesting response.
Yeah, I found that one interesting too, because you're absolutely right. I mean, the buck ultimately stops with the brand owner, right? Because
Yeah,
no one,
completely.
no, all they know is they bought a particular product from XYZ retailer or XYZ company. They don't see or care about the name on the truck, the delivery truck that shows up at their door. If it's damaged, if it's late, whatever the case, they're going to hold the brand, that retailer or that manufacturer that you bought it from ultimately responsible. And the whatever positive or negative experience you have
Without question.
is going to be reflected back to the brand owner. So I thought that was an interesting comment as well. There was another comment, if I remember correctly, and I'm kind of curious on your take on it as well. I think another respondent said, we send we do 5,000 shipments a day or something like that, and they said, for us to send emails out or engage with customers every day on these deliveries will be kind of onerous. I mean, what's your experience, particularly for high, people that have high volumes of shipments? I mean, is there a cadence that you do, or I mean, how does that work with high volume shippers?
Well, it's an interesting point, and my question straight away to that particular response would be: do you send those 5,000 shipments to the same customer? The answer is more than likely going to be no. So actually, the cadence perspective doesn't really come into it because you're sending it to different people. So those consumers or customers are only going to see that survey or feedback request once. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is just from I guess sort of taking it back a step is why should we send it or how should we send it? If you were to send a text message or an email every single time you did something, that's onerous. A lot of this can be automated because it's the same information repeated, just with a different time window, timestamp, customer name. There's really just a small amount of data and information that you need to automate that process. So it's not about being an onerous process. It's more about, do you have the data to be able to do it? And that's not a lot of data.
Right, and the technology, the software, let's say, to automate the process, because I agree. I think probably that person
Yeah,
was thinking having an army of people sending out emails, typing out individual emails to 5,000 people, every day.
yeah,
And in that case, it would that's a very inefficient, manual, labor intensive process, and that's not really what what we're talking about here. Is the ability to obviously leverage some of these technology and data capture systems that we have to be able to automate and streamline this process in more efficient ways. Which brings me, I guess, to my last question, as a way to wrap up. I mean, when it comes to customer engagement around deliveries, I mean, what actions should companies take to start improving in this area, and then how can technology help?
yeah. I'm going to avoid the easy answer, which straight away. I'll reiterate a couple of points from earlier. When we talk about engagement, this doesn't mean about having people resources to do it, and almost kind of looping into that last point as well. Providing that the data or the ability for customers to make changes themselves, it completely eliminates the need for customer service agents to call, confirm deliveries, answering calls with customers about the time. So it's not about people resource. Most companies, certainly that I speak to, already have all of this information about at their fingertips. Okay, they use routing, they'll use fleet telematics solutions, they'll use job management, proof of delivery solutions. So it really only takes a handful of key customer data points to quickly, swiftly, whichever way you put it, take your customer experiences to the next level. There's absolutely no need to reinvent the wheel when, and I'm going to be really honest, when providers like ourselves have already done the heavy lifting and communicating and engaging with clients on kind of customers on the day of service. So really, that's what I'm going to say. Last of all, I'll kind of sort of end it and say that by looking at areas within your business with no access rates or failed deliveries, really large call volumes, poor customer satisfaction, whatever the case may be, building a business case or building the case for customer engagement becomes exponentially critical. The data alone that comes out of just deploying customer engagement technology, whether it's a sales or any others, and being able to analyze that within any overall business strategy should be, in my opinion, enough of a reason to invest in prioritizing customers' experience. It's also the way to differentiate yourselves with your competitors, which, post, I'm going to call it post 2021, 2022, is certainly the single biggest thing that I believe companies are looking to do is differentiate themselves from their competitors. That for me is the prioritization.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think overall, I think the survey results, parts of it were surprising, some of it were not surprising, but I think overall, my main takeaway was, at least within our research community, is that there's a lot of room for improvement in this area for a lot of companies out there. So for those of you watching this episode, when you look at the report, kind of curious how you would have responded to those questions, whether those results align with your own experience, as well. And then based on what we discussed today, hopefully you come away with, a better understanding of why, this is such an important area, and an area that, can pay off handsomely, with relatively minimal, effort, if you will. So Gary, again, thank you for making the time to be with us today, sharing your insights and advice on, engaging with customers around deliveries. I certainly learned a lot, and I'm sure many of our listeners learned a lot as well. So again, thank you.
Adrian, thanks very much for having me, and really enjoyed the conversation. And most importantly, I absolutely love that picture on your background.
Yeah, that's my wife gave me that as a present. I like to say that's me in frog form, especially when I'm wearing these these glasses. So
I'll join you.
There you go. There you go. So that's become my partner in crime over the past few months since I've gotten it. Again, thank you for making the time. Thank you for all of you that watched today's episode. If you've got a question or a comment for Gary, and you're watching this episode on demand, either at the Descartes website or on Talking Logistics, you can post a question there, and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to respond via that medium. Again, thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you in a future episode of Talking Logistics. Have a great day.